Well, in other news tonight, doctors and researchers are finding that some people are unable to fully recover after contracting COVID-19. Our Mariah Gallegos takes a closer look at these lingering symptoms and explains why they should not be ignored.
Not everyone with COVID, but a subset of people who survive COVID are developing what patients are calling long-haul COVID.
Lauren Stiles is the president of Dysautonomia International. She says about 10 to 30% of all COVID patients will develop a form of what's called dysautonomia.
It includes a lot of different disorders of the autonomic nervous system.
It's when the nervous system isn't working right. This includes your blood pressure, heart rate, digestion, among other things.
Months later, they're showing up with lightheadedness, a racing heart. When they stand up, their blood pressure is sometimes going up too much, orthostatic hypertension, this is called. And they're getting a lot of other autonomic nervous system symptoms.
It's a disorder that can develop from a number of viruses, but researchers like Stiles are finding the symptoms to coincide with those of the coronavirus.
A lot of them have a loss of sense of smell and taste.
The problem, however,
there are very few doctors who have the special training and expertise to diagnose and treat autonomic disorders.
If the symptoms go untreated,
they can end up bedridden, they could end up having a very poor quality of life, missing out on work or school.
Stiles says if people are still experiencing these lingering effects, they should continue to seek help from doctors. Some treatments include
increasing your salt and fluid intake if your doctor has given you the okay to do that. Starting a very slow, gradual exercise program.
Stiles says for those who suffer from COVID-19 symptoms long after having COVID, they should know they're not alone. And for those who haven't had COVID,
even if you're not afraid of dying from COVID, be on the lookout to protect yourself from long-term organ damage or chronic illness that you or your family could get.
We'll have more information about dysautonomia on our website at KIIITV.com. Mariah Gallegos, 3 News.